Hi, welcome back to Truck and Mommy. If you're new here, please hit that subscribe button. Be sure to like and comment down below or dislike if you don't like this content. That's also helpful. So today I am going to be answering some questions from my last video. So I got my phone here so I can read those comments. I had a few asking specific questions, and some were just kind of saying hi. Thank you for all of those comments. I really appreciate it. So the first one I got here is from Vivian. She's saying, hello, how were you balancing trucking and taking care of kids? And I have another one like that from Kev saying, we want to know what it's like being a trucker and a mom. So to be honest with you, it is tough. It's tough because especially in summer, we're gone, what did I say, from like 6 a.m. till who knows when in the evening. Even when I was just a driver. So I'm going to start with some questions that I got from the comments in my last video. The first one's from Vivian. She said, hello, how were you balancing trucking and taking care of kids? And then I got another one like that from Kev. He said, we want to know what it's like being a trucker and a mom. So because I drove truck as a driver and also as an owner operator, they're similar as far as time. When I was driving for another company, I was driving 30 minutes away. So I actually had to leave the house before 6 o'clock usually to get there on time. So then I had another, like, it was annoying because my husband, he's like 10 minutes away and I'm 30 minutes away. So I actually saw them less time usually. And dump trucks often, it depends on the job, but sometimes they work longer hours than my husband. He does side dumping. So it's hard. It's hard to, it's hard to balance trucking and kids, especially keeping in mind when I started, my youngest was 2 and they were both in diapers. So it was hard leaving them home all day with somebody else and not seeing them. The good thing about construction work in where I work is that we have some time off in winter. It's seasonal. So then I get to spend more time with them, or I did get to spend more time with them in the winter, but then they started school. So then it's just spending time in the house with sometimes my husband. Sometimes he worked and I was home, and I worked and he was home. But it was weird because like once they started school, it's like a part-time empty nesters thing. So weird having the house to ourselves. But anyway, the balance, it's we just have to kind of tag team it. Some days I'd fall asleep before the kids were done with their nighttime routine or whatever. My husband would have to take over. So sometimes we both fall asleep and then we're sunk. But most of the time, we just make it work. I knew coming into trucking that I didn't plan to stay for long. As well, I shouldn't say that. I knew I know things now that I didn't know then, but we were just talking about when I started a few days ago, my husband and I reminded him like, hey, I said when I got into it, I'm giving 3 years of this and then I want to come back home and be with the kids because I'm not in this for the long haul. And he's like, that's not the right attitude to have when you're starting something new. I'm like, yeah, but I was just helping you, right? But I'm going to be straight up with you. He's right. If you're going to do something, thinking of it and as a, like, this is a short-term thing, I'm not going to do it after a set time. That isn't the right attitude to have because like giving yourself an end point, like you don't know how things are going to go. And if I'm going to be in trucking, and have my own business and stuff to run. I can't just stop it in 3 years' time. That's crazy. But I'm getting a little bit off. Sorry. The question was, how do I balance having kids and trucking? And the short answer is it's really tough. The long answer is also it's really tough, but it has more details. And it's doable, though. Anything that you set your mind to, you'll figure it out. The biggest challenge we had was childcare while we were gone. So what we ended up having to do, because we leave the house so early in the morning, we would have to have people stay with us during the week, at least during the week. The weekends, they can go somewhere else, it's fine, but because we'd leave and sometimes they'd be sleeping, the babysitter, because the kids are sleeping too. And so it worked out. But it was, it was hard. It was rough. So, sorry. I don't know what else to say about that. But if that is, if you're a woman, you're watching this, know that the plus side of trucking is that it pays better. Okay, I have another question here that will be good for that transition. It says, sorry. What's it say? Sorry, I'm trying to find that comment. Okay, here it is, by Evan. He said, please make a video comparing the difference in earning and work conditions between trucking and other jobs you've worked. So other jobs I've worked a lot of jobs. When I was a teenager, and even before I was a teenager, I worked jobs like beekeeping. I lived out in the countryside, and everybody I knew was a beekeeper, basically. So I did a lot of that. And I've worked in food service. I've worked in retail. I've worked in a nursing home setting as a nursing assistant, certified nursing assistant. And those are kind of the jobs I've worked at. When I was in college, I worked as a kind of like a secretary, sort of student receptionist. And I've done some little short stints on things here and there, but those are the main ones. So I haven't worked, I don't have a degree right now formally, so I don't have like higher level of education. Comparing just financially between the other jobs I've worked and trucking. I used to drive school bus too. Okay, so between trucking and even the school bus and all the other jobs, nothing compares to trucking. I'll just give you that straight up. That's why I said it's worth it to be away from the kids for a little while to get into trucking. Because ladies, if you're watching this, if you're struggling to pay the bills, even as a driver for another company, even as a driver, I made way more money than I could ever make even driving school bus. And I didn't make the kind of money I made driving school bus anywhere else either. With the other jobs that I worked, they were nothing in comparison to driving a school bus. But the money I made driving school bus was nothing compared to the money I made trucking. And it's actually, in some ways, easier. I just couldn't be around my kids. So working conditions, it's kind of irrelevant in some ways, but like beekeeping and retail and all those kinds of things, they're a lot of physical manual labor. Technically, driving truck is also manual labor. It's just you get to sit down and hopefully you have air conditioning. Not all trucks do, but most of them do, especially if you work for a more reputable company. So that's a plus. You don't have to be on your feet all day, like when I was in retail and food service. So you do get yelled at occasionally, but I think that's like any job, right? So the one of the downsides is using the bathroom. Like, we use porta potties a lot and they're really stinky and gross, but I found a way to make it work. You can bring your own stuff in the truck, even if you drive for somebody else, like for a company. The nice thing about having my own truck is I can leave my stuff in there, but when I drove for a company, I would usually want to take it home with me because I never knew if I was going to be in that truck, even though I'm the primary driver of it. Maybe there's a one-off where somebody else is driving and I don't want them in there with all my stuff, you know what I mean? So I would always take my stuff out at the end of the day. So using porta potties, of course, they don't have water and soap and things to wash your hands. So I made that work. My husband actually told me, like, he brings water with so he could wash his hands. So I started doing that. And I just put a thing of soap in the door, the driver door of my truck. So it was like a little bathroom station. So when they say like everything in the kitchen sink or but the kitchen sink, like I even had the kitchen sink because I could wash my hands wherever. It gets a little tricky in winter when it's 20 below, but you know, we always make it work. And then I'd even bring a towel with me, like a hand towel, so I could dry my hands and everything. It's pretty awesome. So working conditions aren't great, but the finances, yeah, it makes it worth it because at the end of the day, it's not about having a job that you like necessarily, but a job that pays the bills. Am I right? I mean, it's a bonus if that job is also like your passion or something that you can get excited about and all that. But who cares if you can't pay your bills? Like, that doesn't, it's irrelevant. I feel like the job that I thought I really wanted to do, that I started going to school for, it only pays, the last I checked, it only pays like maximum like $40K a year, which in the US, that's not enough to survive. Maybe, I think the minimum annual income for somebody living where I do, you have to make at least 60K to survive, like to pay the bills and everything. And trucking will get you there even as a driver. So that's why I'm surprised there are so few women in trucking right now, because a lot of women do struggle to pay the bills. And this is a way to make up for it. This is a way to change the game. And especially if you own your truck. If you're driving for somebody, you can still pay your bills. But if you own your truck, you will pay your bills and then some. So that's trying to find the next question, if there is one. Actually, yeah, I think that was all the questions I had. Although I did say I would talk more about how I got the third truck. I don't know if I should do that today. I also said I'd talk about how I got into trucking. I know I talk about that in some of my older videos, but kind of just as a refresher, maybe I'll start there. That makes more sense, go kind of consecutive. So I'll start with, and this is related to the kind of the work conditions. This is how I got started in trucking. Back in, what year was this? 2015. I had a 1-year-old. And at the time, I was working at a nursing home as a nursing assistant, certified nursing assistant at the rehab unit. And so we saw a lot of turnover of patients there, residents, because they were there for therapy and stuff, physical therapy, occupational therapy. Then they would be discharged. And a lot of times they would come back, and sometimes they would cycle through, and sometimes we'd just see new people too. But at one point, I got pneumonia when I was working there because it was going around. And when you're working with people who have poor immune systems, there's a lot of illnesses that go around. And if you are not used to that, you'll get sick too. So I got pneumonia. I got yelled at by the charge nurse that I wasn't a team player. And I was actually kind of scared that they were going to fire me because I had pneumonia. It was like, it was crazy, right? Like, I'm sick. I know I'm sick. They know well, they knew I was sick after I told them. I hadn't gone to urgent care yet. I went to the clinic right after my shift that day, and that's when I found out. Then I had to take some time off. And so I was actually scared I was going to lose my job because I got sick from work. And then I was also scared that I was going to give my family the illness that I picked up from work. And it just really, it wasn't a good fit. It just was not. And then I had to have childcare too while I'm working. So something just wasn't adding up. So I remember somebody told me about driving school bus. And I had that in the back of my mind, but I didn't think I would ever do it. Like, come on, I can't drive a bus. It's so big. They have too many kids. How will I manage them and drive? Like, no, thank you. And keep in mind also, I grew up, for those who don't know, I grew up in the countryside. As I said, I grew up away from people, like not dense population. This is the metro. Traffic here is not as bad as some places in the country, but in the US, but it is way different than when I was growing up. I mean, when I took driver's ed, we had to drive like 30 miles just to practice going through a stoplight. All we have are stop signs and stuff. So from the town I grew up in. So I decided though that for my family it would be better if I'd pursue a school bus. So the nice thing about that is the company that I worked for, they actually trained me for free and actually paid me to train. I got a sign-on bonus once I got my license, and they tested me in-house. I don't know that all school bus companies do this, but the one I worked for did. So basically, as long as I didn't do something stupid like hit a curb or something like that, that's an automatic fail. Chances are that I'll pass the first time. And I did. I passed the first time. Then I had my class B, which is all that a person needs to get into a dump truck. I did not have my air brake endorsement, but I had my class B starting December 2015. And then I started driving school bus, and I did that for a couple of years. And then while I was driving school bus, I got my Class A driver's license. I went to trucking school to do that in South St. Paul. I think they moved, most of their training is now in Wisconsin, so I wouldn't be able to do that today. It's too far away. But back then it was just in St. Paul, so it was drivable for me. And I was planning on purchasing a day cab so that I could do side dumping like my husband. I never intended to drive dump truck, never intended to buy a dump truck, but that's how I got started in trucking. Then I was looking for a day cab to buy at a company, and they didn't have the right truck for me. My husband said they wouldn't really be a good fit for me since I was a newer driver. That's another story. But anyway, they asked me to drive their dump trucks, one of their dump trucks. And I said yes. And just until I could get my own truck, get some experience and everything. So then I started in 2019. That's when I started trucking officially. And then the next year we got a dump truck. And I drove that until last summer. And it's been a ride, but it's good. It's good. The one thing I miss about driving truck, I think, is just the time, because a lot of times we're just driving on the highway, and then we have time to do things like listen to audiobooks or music or talk on the phone or whatever. When we're on the job site, please don't do that, especially if you're new. Like, just shut it off because there's too many distractions. But on the highway, a lot of times we can listen to things, and that's nice. I don't have that time when I'm home because I'm taking care of my kids now, but it's a different kind of thing to be home, and that's nice too. It has its own things. So that's it for today. I can't really think of anything else for now, but if you do have any questions, if there's things that that you'd like to know more about, let me know in the comments. I'm here for you guys and ladies. Please comment so I know what to talk about, what to do. And I haven't seen anyone really check in on those. If you have any New Year's resolutions, there's still time. It's only a couple weeks into the new year. And little update from me, I guess. My first video of the year, I talked about coding. I'm still working on that. I'm on my 10th project right now, and it is still really fun. And I'm learning a lot about HTML and CSS and how to design my own things now without a kind of a template. I got to figure it out on my own, and it's cool. It's fun. So if you've been working on anything these last couple of weeks, I want to know about it. I want to hear what you're doing. So please comment down below. If you haven't, subscribe, like, unlike if you don't like it. If you don't like my content, let me know that too. And we'll see you next time. All right, bye.